My name is Steve. Welcome to my shop. I've been working on several projects in the shop lately. I've had a couple of them that have come through that I have not filmed just because they had to get done. I've done some repair work in the shop and I've been working on that steam engine. But it's time to do one of my favorite things, and that is to make a tool. So in this video I'm going to be making a mounting bracket or mounting block for this 2-inch range dial indicator that I picked up recently, so that I can mount it on my lathe to use as a Z DRO, if you will. I've got some small pieces that I'm going to be making in the near future, and I'd like to be able to use the dial indicator to measure on the length of them and so on. I'm taking my design cue from this carriage stop. Comes with my Atlas lathe and it's adjustable, and so I'm kind of using that as the base design for the dial indicator holder. So somewhere in this block of steel is a tool. So let's go over to the milling machine and get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is square off the end. I'm leaving the piece intact for now, and I'll show you why in the future setup here. Because normally you would cut the piece off to length before you started machining it, but I have a very specific reason for not doing that. So let's take and just square up the end. I'm using a 1/2 inch Niagara cutter roughing end mill. Okay, that's good. My next operation is to drill a hole through here for the stem of the dial indicator, and that measures 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to start out with a 1/4 inch drill, and then I'm going to go out to 23/64 and then ream it to 3/8. There's a 375 gauge pin, and that fits it just perfect. So I'm going to take it out of the mill and go over to the bench and finish the layout on it. There, it fits perfect. Nice sliding fit. I'll be drilling some holes in it for set screws that'll hold it in place. So let's lay out the rest of it. Since I've already got the drill chuck in, and I hate to keep swapping back and forth, I'm going to lay out the position of the rest of the holes, and we'll do all the rest of the drilling before we go any further. I'm going to need a couple of holes in it for the lock, to lock it to the bed of the lathe, and I'm going to need 2 holes in it for set screws. Actually, I think I'll only put 1 hole in the center for the set screw for the dial indicator. I don't need 2 for that. So I'm going to lay them out, and we'll go back over to the mill and drill the balance of the holes. This hole will be a tap drill for 1/4 inch. The tap drill size is a number 7. While I've got this set up, I think I'll tap it for the 1/4 20 set screw. The tap doesn't have a tip on it or a recess in it for the tap follower, and I haven't got room with the chuck in here to put a tap wrench that's got the hole in it. So I'm just going to freehand it. I've got it pretty well lined up. This is a taper tap, and it lined up pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to set up to drill these 2 holes, and they're actually going to be clearance holes for 5/16 volts. So I'm going to drill them 21/64. Since this isn't really a precision situation, I'll just drill it 1 shot. next hole is 1 inch over. That should be it. Okay. That takes care of all the holes that I need to drill. Now we're going to set up for the next operation. I ran the 3/8 reamer through this hole again by hand to clear out the burrs that were made by tapping the hole. So now what I'm going to do, and why I left this piece full length, I'm going to set it up in the mill to cut a radius on this end. I want to kind of replicate the radius that's on here. So we'll go back over to the mill and I'm going to set it up to cut that radius. Here's my setup to cut the radius on the end of this block. I got a 3/8 piece of drill rod in here. I set a couple of washers and now I'll move the cutter in and just rotate this. Then I'm going to have to flip it over to finish the other side because the milling cutter isn't deep enough to do the whole thing. Then I'll find out how close to center this hole is. Okay, I've got it turned over, and now I'll cut it on this side. I don't expect it to turn out absolutely perfect. But I'm going to, I'll hit it on the belt sander to true it up afterwards. Okay, I've got it reset. Let's try again. Alright, I took it over the sander and just rounded it off to even it out. That worked out okay. So now, take it over to the bandsaw and cut it to length and put the final details on it. Okay, I've got it all set up to do my final cuts. The first thing I'm going to do is square off the block. I'm just going to do a few thousandths climb cut. Get a little bit better finish. I'm using a roughing mill, so I don't expect much. Okay. This block is a little thicker than the carriage stop that I'm copying. So I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off of here so that once I put this slot in it, or this rabbet, it'll bring me to the correct height for the center line of the dial indicator. So I'm going to be cutting this down by 1/8, about approximately 1 inch in from the back. I want to get to the other side of these bolts. Go about another 1/8 of an inch. It's not critical, but I just want to leave myself a little extra room. Just milling to my scribe marks. It's not critical. I'm going to start milling my slot, the rabbet. It is a 1/2 inch wide and it's 5/16 deep. Okay, it's right on the money. It's 5/16. That should be the end of the milling work. Let's just take it over to the lathe and see if everything lines up. Oops. Okay, here's the block. That's the way it's going to sit. And that works out just right, because I can bring it, well, I don't know, let me reposition the camera. So I can slide it all the way down to the end, and the back of the dial indicator clears the quick change gearbox, which is what I was looking to do, so I could bring it back all the way to here. Now I have to make the clamp for it. Okay, now I'm going to start machining the keeper plate that will lock this onto the bed of the lathe. I cut off a piece to a nominal size on the bandsaw. I decided not to bore you with more bandsaw work, so I'm just going to square this up and cut it to size. Now I'm going to take it over to the bench and mark the width on it so that I can cut it down to final width. I scribed it at my final width. There again, this is not a precision measurement, so I'm just going to mill it to my scribe line. Back to the bench. Okay, this is my final cut on the keeper. Here again, I'm going to be milling to that line. I've actually got to measure it. It doesn't look like that line is square, but I have the piece squared up in the vise, and we'll cut it down to size. That should do it. Okay, I'm going to deburr it, and I'll take it back over to the bench and we'll lay it out to drill it. And now I'm going to mark it for the 5/16 threaded holes. I'm just using a transfer punch. Okay, that gives me enough of a mark on it. I use my regular center punch now to put a decent pip in it. Now what I'm going to do is drill a couple of holes along this edge for a 1032 set screw. And what that'll do, it'll give me the ability to tip that a little bit so that I can make sure that it locks onto the bed. This has a similar, they're a little bit further away, but I think it'll do the same thing. So I'm going to mark it for that, and then we'll go over to the mill and drill some holes. Rather than reset the mill, I'm just going to drill these holes on my little drill press here. I said this is nothing that's real precision. I shouldn't have a problem with that. Drill size for the 5/16 18 is an F drill. Okay, now I'm going to drill for the 1032, and that is a drill size 21. Alright, I'm going to take it over the bench and tap the holes. Take it over to the Scotch-Brite wheel, deburr it. We'll come back and put it together. Well, there it is, all set up. Ready to roll. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I'm going to finish polishing it up a little bit and do some chemical bluing on it. I'm not going to do that on film. I've already done a whole video on the chemical blackening or bluing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I certainly have enjoyed making the tool, and I'll see you next time.